Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And today, I want to ramble on some more. I haven't really got into my time in Japan yet, and I am loving it, and it's so centering and fun that I think it's about time to get into that. So, let me start with the house, which are like the only problems I have had since moving to Japan are with this house. And by problems, I really mean single problem. It's loud. I mentioned this last time. I'm, two rows of houses. I'm one row of houses separated from a highway. And while it's not the busiest highway in Japan, it's the first time I'm close enough and the sound isolation is absent enough that I can hear a lot of the cars going by. And a huge part of that is that Japan is so quiet already. But in my ideal world, I wouldn't be hearing any cars outside. Okay, that's out of the way. Now that that is out of the way, everything else has been super awesome. I found this little house privately owned, so I don't have to worry about the tourist tax fees with hotels that they have here, which I think can be like $5 per day, which would really be an unwelcome addition. But apparently, if you are renting out a private house, then you can get that fee waived. So I just looked around Japan, and while this is certainly a housing crisis country in some senses, and housing, it's one of the most expensive countries for housing in the world outside of the US. Average US apartment is $1,600 USD per month right now. I would say that the average is pretty close to that here in Japan. There were a ton of places over 1,200 that just looked like normal apartments. And 10 years ago, even the last time I was here, I think I managed to get an apartment in Kyoto, or maybe it was Osaka. Yeah. For 400 for a couple weeks, and I was like, whoa, I think it was close to 500, but that was for 2 weeks. But I managed to find a house for 650 in Matsuyama, kind of a little bit outside of the city, but really not too far, and it's right next, there's train stations nearby because it's Japan, so there's trains everywhere, and there's grocery stores and all this. But I was very excited to get this deal. It's just because it's a private house, I guess, and it's more of a no muss, no fuss thing. There's nobody here. It's self-check-in. I take care of everything. So the owner just kind of collects checks. And you'll see later, I don't think they've lived here for a long time. And there's not a ton of description about the house, but the host is very responsive and even helped me out because I got a new credit card that gives great rewards on Airbnb purchases, and there's not a lot of credit cards that do that. So, but the problem is banks are silly in the US, so it takes so long to make a payment to your credit card. It's just, I don't understand why the transfer rates are so long. Anyway, they are very long in the US, so I had to wait several days for a transfer to clear so that the credit card could be used for this relatively expensive house, because I had just bought other flights, the wedding flight in the Philippines, and then the flight out of the Philippines to Japan. So getting the house, I just had to wait until... But the host was very nice and blocked off those dates for me until I was ready, and then I booked the dates, and then I got to my nice house, and immediately when I stepped in, I was like, oh, this is where the idea for The Grudge came from. It's super clean, it's very nice, but it's so quiet in Japan, and I have this larger space all to myself. Plus there's a extremely narrow, steep stairway going up to the second floor. And I just imagine that little girl crawling up the stairs on her hands and feet. Oh, good, I'm talking about it while I still live in the house. What a great idea. Yeah, there's something about Japan that, especially since whenever the last time I was here, I think that was the 3-month trip where I was backpacking from Tokyo to Osaka. It feels spiritual. Like, if any country could have ghosts, and I don't think any do, Japan is the country where ghosts are encouraged by the living. Like, there are so many shrines and temples and tombs and public acknowledgement of death as a part of life in Japan that it just feels a lot more ghostly than most other countries who don't really incorporate that part of the life cycle into everyday life in the same way that Japan certainly does. But the house is nice, and the carpet isn't carpet, it's all tatami mats, which I really like. And so I have been extremely careful around those because they're like permanently attached tatami mats to the floor, which, you know, freaks me out because if I spill anything, I don't know how I pick this up to clean it. So whenever I bring food into one of the rooms to watch TV or whatever, I always have it in a large plastic bucket, basically. There was a plastic storage, like small-ish plastic storage container, and literally every time I have a meal or I'm having a beer and some snacks, I put everything inside there first because it has high walls, you know, like a storage container, and I can just reach in and take whatever I'm eating and eat it over the little storage container. Because otherwise, there's no way I can be here for over a month or whatever and never spill anything. And so far, it's been okay. Knock on wood. But I am very glad that that plastic storage container with high walls is here, so I don't have to worry about what if anything spills. At least it'll be in the container. That's not nearly half the amount of headache it would be if I spilled anything on these very luxurious tatami mats. I really like these tatami mats as a floor covering. They're very comfortable, and they look really good, too. Everything, so the house, everything in it is, like, there are shoji paper doors and, you know, wood and shoji paper. Everything in here is wood. There's some tile in the kitchen and bathroom, but it's all very tasteful. This is a tasteful little place, and I was very happy to realize, like 2 days in, the first day I was like, oh, whatever, I just took a shower and went to bed. And then the second day I got up and I was like, oh, that's an onsen. Like, there's a stainless steel onsen, like a private bath here, because there's not a ton of public baths around where I am. So I was kind of bummed because, and I asked the host this beforehand, I asked several questions about the little town that their house was located in, and he was like, yeah, there's no super close grocery store, but there are 2 convenience stores. And for me, I was just like, oh my god, I have an excuse to just eat convenience store food, which I love in Japan, and is healthy and varied. Like, yes, please. And then the other thing was public baths. I love public baths. I go to them whenever I'm in Japan, often every other day, like pretty often. So when I asked the host and I found out there was no public bath nearby this neighborhood because it's outside of the city, I was trepidatious. But there's a private bath. I think the ones in the house are called onsens, right? Sento is the public bath. Onsen is either like the big fancy hot springs or your private bath at home. No, that's ofuro. That's what I'm thinking of, right? Hang on, let me check. Yeah, ofuro is the one at home. Onsen is the natural hot spring, and sento is the public baths that I love so much in Japan. So I'm not close to a public bath, and I was like, meh, because I'm whiny. But I have a bathroom with a private ofuro, so I can still soak in luxurious warm water that just feels personalized. Apparently they're called unit baths, but ofuro sounds 100 times better, so we'll use the Japanese word. I like this house. I don't like walking up and down stairs, but that's not really an issue for me because the wood is so nice and the shoji paper screen doors are so cool. And there's so many amenities just by virtue of being in Japan, but there's a full bidet toilet. I would be happy still using my bottle bidet because I love that thing, but this is a full electric buttons on the side, heated water for the bidet water. Like, it's a nice toilet, and it's a nice bathroom. There's a window for exhaust, and with such a luxurious toilet, heated seat, and the heated water, it's very nice, especially because I'm visiting for cherry blossom season, when, if you don't know, it's quite cold in most of Japan for cherry blossom season, unless you're way south in one of Okinawa or like a smaller island. But anywhere on the main islands, if you're there before cherry blossom season or leading up to it, as I am, it's usually like, I don't know, 10 degrees Celsius or less. Like 45 to 50 Fahrenheit is pretty normal, a pretty normal temperature here to expect for most of March. So the fact that the toilet itself with its heating elements is so luxurious definitely makes this nicer. And then I have the ofuro. So even though I'm kind of isolated, the luxuries are worth it. It's very nice. And then the town is nice too. I was surprised there was no grocery store because it is a neighborhood. I mean, there's enough people here. I would think they'd have one, but the host was like, yeah, sorry, there's just no grocery stores nearby. But I love konbini food in Japan specifically, and there's so much to choose from. You can get edamame, you can get duck pastrami, you can get kimchi bean sprouts. There's tons of different types of onigiri. There's a new one that I really like. It seems like yuzu's making its way into Japan more than I remember, but maybe I just wasn't eating as much yuzu back then. But there's a onigiri that's like yuzu seasoned like little sprats, like little fish, anchovy kind of things, and seaweed and soy sauce, and it's so good. And then there's a yuzu ponzu sauce that I thought was vinegar, but it's actually just a yuzu flavored soy sauce, but made with like real yuzu juice. And man, I have already gone through an entire bottle of that and took a train to the next station so that I could get to a grocery store largely because of the ponzu sauce. I was like, okay, I need some soap and whatever, but I gotta get some ponzu sauce. I can find soap anywhere. And it was really fun being back in a Japanese grocery store for the first time since I got here. In a week, I've just been eating the konbini food and hanging out in my little town area, going into the mountains mostly every day when I'm walking around. But what's so great about Japanese supermarkets that I love is that they have tons of freshly cooked food, and it's good. It's not like it's not a hamburger wrapped like in foil that you can microwave. These are fish or meats sliced and cooked by dedicated supermarket chefs in the back room, and it's fresh fish. So you can get sashimi and sushi rolls freshly made by the resident sushi chef of that supermarket. And I love that because it's less expensive than the restaurants and it's so convenient, and especially because it's Japan, the quality is still very high. The lowest quality of anything you'll find in Japan are probably in the convenience stores. Like the convenience store sushi is nothing to applaud. Sometimes it can be great, but that's where if you're going to find low quality food, it will be in the convenience stores. But as soon as you hit supermarket level, even tiny grocery store level in Japan, all the quality of the food must be high and it maintains a consistent high grade. So I was very happy to go to this grocery store. I found my ponzu yuzu pon right away, and then I found my soap, and then I tried a whole bunch of the snacks at the supermarket chain to see how they compared to the konbini. Pretty much the same. Konbini snacks, oh my gosh, there's savory salmon jerky, so much good stuff. There's like cooked dried lotus root with ginger and salt seasoning on it. There's really good crispy potato chips, which I love. There's so much good, tasty food, snacks, like in the convenience store. It was so easy for me to go a week without going to a grocery store with a couple konbini stores next to me. Konbini, convenience store, they say konbini, so that's what I mean when I keep saying konbini, a Japanese convenience store. They have every type of, like, udon, ramen, soba, all these kind of things also. They have 2 or 3 doors of beer, so you can pick all the different kinds of beer. They're really into the seltzers now, too. It used to be like a couple shelves of seltzers, and then mostly Sapporo, Asahi, Ichiban. But now, there's, in one whole door is all different types of seltzers. And a couple of rows of that is the 196, like, mass-produced whatever ones, but there's also a few interesting special ones, and there's one really good one by Suntory, just called, like, Original Sour, that I'm liking because there's very little sugar in it. So, yeah, for the first week, I had no problem not going to a grocery store, just getting onigiri and the salmon jerky and, a couple different of these beers. There's so many beers to try. It was a really fun time, but I know it is much more expensive. It's still cheap. That's the great thing. The onigiris are only like $1 US. It's still cheap to get the food in the konbini, but the food at grocery stores in Japan is actually extremely reasonable. I guess I should bring that up. The cost of expense of traveling to Japan, people usually don't because it's so expensive. But honestly, on the ground, I've noticed this since my first trip. My first trip, this shocked me, and now I'm just pleasantly prepared for it. Housing is the only expensive thing. So if you get a good deal and you can find a nice apartment for $600 a month or whatever, that's fantastic. Get that. Housing is expensive in Japan, but food is totally reasonable. Like, you can get at a grocery store 12 pieces of sashimi for $5.50 or $4.40, like I did at that supermarket, because there was a 20% discount. After noon, all the sushi they make gets discounted because they freshly made it at least a couple hours ago. So even though the sushi is same day and it's well cut and it's high quality grade sashimi fish, it'll go 20 to 50% off in the afternoon because they need people to take it away or they're just going to throw it away. So that's my thing. I go in the afternoon, get the discounted sushi, and then go back the next day and get it again. Because sometimes it's only an hour old. Sometimes it's not very old at all. So I was very happy with my little town. Turns out I didn't need the public bath because I did have this really nice ofuro that I could have my own private bath section. Inside my room, there are 2 convenience stores right next to me, so I can get food, so the grocery store wasn't too inconvenient. And I love I love Japanese mountains. I love walking up and down them. And because I'm so remote outside of, like, Matsuyama City Center, I can just turn around and after 10 minutes start walking the paths into the Japanese mountains. And it's great. I feel like Ghost of Tsushima, like I'm playing that game again, because I'm just constantly finding temples that are not marked, observation decks on mountains that there's no signs for or anything. You just keep walking, and I got to the top of a mountain, and there was a observation deck with a little shrine with a super intricate, fancy, blue-painted Buddha statue, some kind of statue in there with little tidbits, charms, and the like around it in a cupboard that's closed with a rock just gently leaning against it. And it looks like nobody has been there in I don't know how long. And I just found it. And I love walking across Japan because, one, I can get clean in the public baths all the time, but also I'm constantly discovering cool cultural artifacts and edifices that are just hanging out, that feel so integrated with the natural landscape. They don't interrupt anything, but they're so intricately detailed and tidy and organized and beautiful. It's so much fun to find all these things in the mountains just by exploring the mountains. So after I had a few days of partying with just all the Japanese beers and seltzers and all the different convenience store snacks that I could shove into my belly in a few days, I had to get back into it. I had to go on those mountain hikes like I was talking about, and I like to find waterfalls in Japan because they really curate their waterfalls. There's usually paths going to it, and even restrooms, facilities, and they keep the area of the waterfall itself as natural as possible, but there are paths around it that don't disturb its presence. And so I love visiting the waterfalls in Japan too. And so I just started walking. There was one like in the mountains, a couple, 90 minutes, 2 hours away from my little house. And I just started walking. And I was like, I don't know if I want to walk all the way there. And then I was 25% of the way, and then I was halfway. And once I was halfway, I was just like, well, keep going. What the heck? You don't got nothing to do. And I kept on strolling my way, and I came upon this very pretty path. Now, I'm still before cherry blossom season, and it was darkening in the evening by the time I arrived. So I started jogging instead so I could get there because I wanted to see the waterfall while it was still a little bit of daylight where I could see it. And I did make it there, and it's winter, it's cold, so maybe that's why there's not as much water in the little waterfall. It's just a tiny little waterfall, basically. But the path is beautiful, and the trails leading up to it are really nice. And in 3 weeks or whatever, all of those 50 cherry blossoms leading up to there are going to be blooming. It's going to be wild. And then on my way out, after I checked out the waterfall, when I was heading back, I noticed right at the beginning there were 2 cherry plum or sour cherry trees, which are different than the traditional cherry blossoms you're familiar with from anime or any Japanese TV show ever. They have slightly smaller petals. They're not as flowy and thin, but they still look very pretty. They smell very nice, and those are already blooming now. And what's really cool is I went again, 5 days later, maybe? Not too much later, and a third tree had bloomed of a different kind. It wasn't a peach blossom. Oh, apricot. Apricot trees are very popular, especially in China now. They've planted a bunch in Beijing because they flower earlier than cherry blossoms, and their petals last a really long time, and they're very sturdy and durable, which is good in China because that is a less organized place that's very loud and there's lots of stuff going on. But in Japan, I don't think the apricot blossoms are as popular as the regular sakura or the sour cherry or cherry plum blossoms because they are thicker, but they have a very nice scent also, and they look really nice. They look very cool. And yeah, so I went a second time to this waterfall, and I realized there's actually a second waterfall besides the first main one on the path. So I backtracked a bit and went around, and I went earlier because I did get there at night, so I barely noticed these little sour cherry blossom trees. So the second time I went was in the daytime, and I saw the little waterfall again, which was cool to see in the daytime. And then I noticed the second one and ran up the road to make sure, but I was much earlier, so I had plenty of time. I guess I just wanted to make the effort. And the second waterfall was pretty cool. It was a lot bigger and crashier. And the really cool thing was the water wasn't clear. And I thought that was odd because it was probably not polluted. There's very, very, very strict environmental regulations in Japan. And you can see that evidenced everywhere. So I was looking at this dirty water, and then I climbed down. There was no stairway down to it, but if you jumped off the stairs, you could land on the dirt and then walk, like, bushwhack down to the riverbank and then up to the waterfall. So I did that this last time I went. And the closer I was like, oh, that's silt. It's like dirt particles, fine dirt particles floating around, and clay. And then I looked down at the riverbank and I was like, oh, clay. That is clay silt floating around in the water. It was, and I put my hand in, and it's like real gray clay. It was amazing because just using it, I just immediately was like, oh, 1,000 years ago, this would be this would be such a rich resource for the people living around here. It was so moldable. It wasn't sopping. It was the perfect density and texture of clay to use for pottery or molding anything. This clay was perfect. So this this rich resource must have felt divine for the people living in this area, because the waterfall's bringing down minerals in just the right amounts to make this amazing clay that clearly would fire so well and could be shaped into anything and felt strong, so that when it would dry, it would be a strong container or roofing tile or whatever you would use it for. It was really cool touching that, and it's really nice. It's clearly not contaminated with oil or other crap, because you can just I waved my hand in the water and it instantly came right off and turned back into the floating silt it had been before I gooshed my hand into it. So that was really fun to go back to again. I love the natural sights here. I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep climbing mountains, finding little temples and shrines, looking at waterfalls, finding the cherry blossom trees. It's great. I'm in the back of Matsuyama. So Matsuyama's on the coast, and then behind it, so all the settlements of this island, Shikoku, basically go around the edge. These are an island people. Japan is an island nation. And all around the periphery of the island, there's little towns and some cities like Matsuyama and Imabari. But if you go inland, that's all kept free, basically. There are a few small towns, certainly, but it's mostly nature, less curated than you would see even closer to the cities. So it's really nice because they keep everything natural, so you can just turn around, walk out of the city, and after half an hour, you can get on a hiking trail and you're in some mountains and you're in... So luckily, this house I got is outside of Matsuyama far enough that if I want to go into the city, I can just grab a train, one stop, and I'm there, or Imabari on the other side to the east. But since I'm on the periphery of the city, I can also just turn around and hike south, and I'm straight in the mountains right away. It's fantastic, because hiking in the mountains is my favorite thing. I think that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to hike in the mountains in Japan again, but I'm still doing this audio work, so I got a house. But I think now that I have 100 whatever episodes out and things are calmed down, I have an idea for Ramble On, Re-Ramble, and other stuff. I'm going to begin backpacking again. I'm going to still have this audio stuff, but I can bank a few of these episodes. I don't have to definitely be there every week to make a new whatever. I can bank a few episodes and then go off on my little hiking for a couple weeks or a month or whatever, which sounds so great, especially now that I'm in Japan. I was like, this is what you wanted to do. Why didn't you think of that before? I'm already thinking maybe I shouldn't get 6 weeks here. I should just get the 1 month in the house and then spend 2 weeks backpacking around Japan before I head over to Mongolia. Yeah, I gotta think about that, because I might really want to do that. Just backpack around for a while. Okay, what was I talking about? Supermarket sashimi, the mountains, really cool waterfall. That's definitely the spot I'm going to go back to, too. I'm going to hike. I think I'm going to go back in a couple more days also, just because I saw cherry blossoms sprouting and budding like all up and down, and they were not doing that when I got there the first time, and then there's that third tree. So I think each time I go back every few days, there's going to be more trees blooming. And then toward the beginning of April, I'll see like the original cinematic OG cherry blossoms going wild. And I expect, I've been the only one visiting these waterfalls now in the beginning of March, but I expect once we get to April and late March, there's going to be a lot of people there joining me in my imagined solitude around the cherry blossom waterfalls. It's really interesting living in Japan in a house, because I usually am just backpacking around, and now I have this little home in a town, and it's quite nice. It's quite nice, but I do also love living in the trees, in the nature here. You know what else is crazy? I came here in like January, I think the last time, and stayed for 90 days, that 3-month trip. So it's cold inside houses and structures. It's cold just walking around. It's pretty wild thinking that for 3 months, I was in definitely sub-zero temperatures on the main island, just living outside for 3 months. That's a testament to how good and convenient the food here is, how comfortable and convenient the public baths are, and how well maintained and left alone really all the nature is, because there's always a place to put up my hammock with my air foam mattress for insulation. Oh, so nice. Loved backpacking through here. I love living here also. It's just a great time all around. I went to you know what? I went into this city. There's a lot to talk about. Let me hit you back with some interesting stories on the next Ramble On. Gonna talk about that supermarket I went to. Exciting stuff there. And exciting news about my house and my little town I didn't realize. Exciting news about Yakitori restaurant, the first public bath. Yeah, there's a lot to get into, so I think I'm going to tell those stories on the next episode. You can talk to me at bitofarambler@gmail.com or bitofarambler on Blue Sky and Lemmy. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you very soon.